I've been pretty darn fascinated by three-dimensional mixed media. So let's see what trouble I can get into with this stuff. Hi everyone, it's Miriam with a Y. I'm not much of a heart person when it comes to motifs, but since it's Valentine's, I'll make an exception. I'm working on a roughly 10-inch tall MDF heart that's about 3/8 of an inch thick. My plan is to have a vine going up on one side with a suggestion of an old wall in the background. My first step is to position my vine using this stencil. To make it a bit more interesting, I purposely let a couple of leaves stick out beyond the edge. And since the plan is to have a textured 3D quality to this piece, I chose to spread modeling paste through the stencil rather than just paint. Now, I could have used a palette knife to do the spreading, but given that it's a large area, I opted for a plastic card instead. And this is just a fake credit card, you know, the kind of stuff you get in the mail. I also want the leaves to be fairly smooth, and it's somewhat easier to achieve that with a card. With the paste all spread, it's time to lift the stencil. And oh my gosh, look how pretty this is. Yeah, we should just stop here. Okay, we're done. Thank you for watching. See you next time. Bye now. Oh man, I just hope it isn't downhill from here. Since I'm all done with this stencil, I scrape off the excess paste to reuse another time, and I immediately dunk the stencil in a pan of water that's at my feet. If you're not going to completely clean your stencil right away when you use something like modeling paste, make sure to let the stencil sit in water so the paste doesn't dry on your stencil, making it just about impossible to remove later. It'll take about an hour for the vine to be safe to touch and a couple of hours for it to be fully dry. So in the meantime, I'm preparing my deli paper. I take a sheet, I crumble it up, and then I rip it into small, random shaped pieces after removing any straight edges. I'll be using these random shapes later for texture along the edge of the heart and the left side. Now you can use tissue paper for this. I like the deli paper because it's a bit tougher, so I can easily peel it up and reposition it if I need to, even when it's full of glue. It doesn't like rip or sort of disintegrate. With the vine dry to the touch, I plan out where I'd like to add some stones for the wall. I'm not putting in a full wall of stones. My idea is to maybe suggest a stucco-like wall that's maybe a bit broken with stones exposed. I'm hoping that it'll look like old and decrepit. Fingers crossed. Since I'm being selective about what part of the stencil I'm using, I am using the palette knife this time so that I can really see which stones I'm choosing and so that I can give them a rougher texture. And I'm also not being careful about totally filling in the stones all the way to the edge of each of the little stone compartments in the stencil. And that's all easier to do with the palette knife. Now I'm trying to sneak in a couple of stones in this empty area near the vine. I try a couple, I don't like them, so I scrape them off and try again. I like the second attempt better. After doing a little cleanup with a micro brush. After waiting a few hours so that all the texture paste is fully dry and hard all the way through, I prepare a slightly watered down mix of Elmer's glue wall to put down my deli paper. So think of this like wallpaper glue now. The water just makes it a little easier to spread. Now, if I was going to be letting this application be the top final layer in my piece, I would use something more like matte medium or decoupage glue or medium to ensure that it was acid-free, wouldn't turn yellow and all that. But since I'm going to be covering this up with acrylic paint, I'm just using less pricey Elmer's glue for this. So any white school glue would work just fine. I've raised my heart onto my favorite little silicone cups to make it possible to do the edge and also to allow room for me to wrap the paper around to the back side. These little cups are awesome because your project won't slide around as you work. Nothing like paint or glue or resin sticks to them. And they're much easier than the alternative of pressing like thumbtacks into the back of your piece for elevation. In keeping with the old wall idea, I put pieces of deli paper down where there are no exposed stones. By exposed stones, I mean the stones that would be peeking out from the broken stucco wall, which is what the tissue paper or deli paper is supposed to represent. just go with it. Okay. I wasn't going to have the patience to put little pieces of paper between all the sections of the vine, but I did put in a few tiny pieces here and there. Again, just to suggest the wall background. Now, what I could have done was put the deli paper texture down first and then put the vine down. But for one of my first mixed media pieces, I wasn't so sure I was ready to try applying paste through a stencil that wasn't flat down on the surface. So baby steps are safer for me because I'm unsupervised. And well, I don't really know what I'm doing. I'm not a mixed media artist. I just play one on YouTube. So, yeah, I will attempt the other way later. But for now, stencil on a smooth, flat surface is the way to go for me. After making sure all of my edges were done, what I did do was dot in a little texture paste here and there around the vine. Again, to give the background a little texture. And then I decided that was enough. I was happy with my overall effect. Now it's time for color. I'm going with Americana Buttermilk, a color I'm hoping I can make look old. I put down 2 coats of the paint and I made sure I got it into every nook and cranny. And there were a lot of nooks and crannies. By the way, does anybody ever use the word cranny on its own? You know, I mean, like other than saying nook and cranny. Like I've said the word nook, like, you know, breakfast nook or something, but cranny? Yeah, I don't know. Okay, my next step was to let this dry so that we could add a little grunge. I wasn't 100% sure how I was going to get that look, but I figured I'd try something, and if it failed miserably, I would paint over it, and try again. Make sure to tune in tomorrow to see how it went, and to see what atypical way I chose to add a lot of the color, and also to see how a teeny bit of shimmer came to the party. Tell me in the comments what you think so far, how you think it turned out, and share any mixed media interests you have. Please give this a thumbs up if you'd like to see more videos, or just because you're awesome. Thank you for watching. See you tomorrow. Bye now. No, really. This time it's for real. Go let your creative nature shine. Bye now.